Well, since my son-in-law was a Marine, I feel like the Marine slogan is appropriate today. The few, the proud, the Marines, right? Here we are, the few, the proud. And it's a special day for several reasons. Charles and Sylvia's 36th anniversary. If my father were alive, this was my father's birthday. If my parents were both alive, this would have been their anniversary. So a special day for me to be speaking. I guess I'm going to be a lot on this side of the podium, no offense to the 5 people over here. Anyway, so it's a special day in a lot of ways. All right, let's see if we can get into this. I guess at some point in time in discussing things amongst the group of CBC preachers, I guess I ended up landing on special day sermons. And last year, I did Mother's Day. The last time I was up here was Father's Day. And today, well, if you want to do those kind of sermons, why don't you do Labor Day? Okay. Then I start to think, a Labor Day sermon. What in the world is that? I'm pretty sure I've never heard one. I bet if I interviewed at random 100 pastors, at least 99 of them would say they've never given a Labor Day sermon. Agreed? Okay, well, good. But I'm thinking, well, how do you do a Labor Day sermon? So, shortly after the last time I preached, because I start to mentally and physically prepare long ahead, well, how would I put together a Labor Day sermon? Well, you look up all the words of work and labor and toil in Scripture, and you put them together. And Gary used one in the introduction. That's not even one I planned on using today, so that's okay. Fine. The next thing I thought of is, I wonder what jobs people had in the Bible. What occupations were there? And I have this little book that's undersized small that says occupations in the Bible, tiny little words, but it ends up being several dozen occupations that are mentioned in the Bible. Well, I could put that in a sermon. And then something that would be uniquely me, I thought, I can research the Hebrew and Greek words that gets translated labor and work and toil, and see if that fills out it a little bit more. I start doing all this and I go, whoa, I got way too much. So I decided to do some condensing, and it'll be up to you to decide whether I condensed enough or not when I'm done. But I cut out the Hebrew and Greek words part, and I cut out a lot of other stuff, so I guess I got a lot of material for... Nobody, Brian Gary, heard that. Okay, moving on along from that. Here's my first question for you. We're going to start, the first part of the sermon is going to be informational, and the latter part of the sermon will be inspirational. Or that's, again, up to you to decide whether it was after I'm done. But anyway, I'll give you a few moments. What jobs did people have in the Bible? Do you think for yourself of occupations that are mentioned in Scripture? I'll give you what?
Tent makers.
Oh, yeah, okay, all right, tent maker, right. And there, as it turns out, there's an awfully lot of them. Think for a moment. And then I'm going to go through some of them, just so that you can connect, because no matter how few or many people we have here, we have a number of different occupations represented by the people in this room, and we could presume that all these different people on my tie have different occupations. That's part of the reason for the tie. There's usually a reason. Have you thought through and thought of several occupations? Okay, first one. What did their hands find to do is the first question that will take up several minutes because there's a lot of ad-libbing that's going to come into this point. The first one I put on the list was farmer. Maybe several of you thought of that one. And we're going to look up these verses and I'm going to read these. And we're going to be jumping for the first part of the sermon, jumping all around several Old Testament books and some New Testament books back and forth. Then later on we're going to settle in one book and go through that. So Isaiah 28:24 on the occupation of farmer. Isaiah 28:24. When a farmer plows for planting, does he plow continually? Does he keep on breaking up and working the soil? Well, first of all, it mentions farmer and some things that farmers do. You have to break up the soil so the air can get at the soil and so that the water can get at the soil and so that the seeds can find lodging down underneath and find protection enough until they take root and become plants, breaking up the soil. And since I said farmer and planting seeds, somebody's already going to be ahead of me, so I'm going to get ahead of that one by saying, turn to Mark 4, verse 3. And for those people who are already ahead of me on this one, Jesus spoke in parables, it says, in verse 2. In verse 3, listen, a farmer went out to sow his seed. Yes, the parable of the sower, possibly the most familiar parable of Jesus, but let's not get a vote going on that. That doesn't matter. What sowing the seed would typically be, and we're talking about what their hands are trying to do, there would be a pouch of some sort, some material, a pouch with all the seed in it, and the farmer would go about the field that he'd already plowed up and be just broadcasting the seed. And so there's a farmer, and some things that a farmer does. All right, I'm sure somebody thought of fisherman. All I have to do is turn back one page in my Bible. Mark 1:16. All we're doing is finding occupations here. We're not making any moral or spiritual judgments or saying you should be like this or you should be like this. We're pointing out jobs in the Bible. So I'm doing my normal 8 to 5 Monday through Friday job of teaching. Okay? Mark 1:16. As Jesus walked beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon and his brother Andrew casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. We do have some evidence from archaeology that there was the pole and line fishing, but that would not be a professional fisherman. I went fishing with my uncle once and didn't like it. But that would be recreational fishing. Professional fishing then, and still now, a very sturdy net of cords or ropes of some sort cast into the water, and then when fish, you move the boat through where fish are or wait for the fish to swim in, and you pull a load of fish that were caught in the net into the boat by the dozens or hundreds perhaps even. You go and barter or sell or trade that in, and you go out and you do it again. That's Bible fishing. Okay, somebody's will have thought of shepherd as a job. And if you think of shepherd, I almost didn't want to, but I couldn't avoid it. Let's say, all right, Psalm 23. Psalm 23, and it's more like this is what a shepherd does. And then we'll come to one other verse. Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd. Okay, that's not a human occupation at that point, other than it's a connection to a human occupation. Makes me lie down, leads me, refreshes me, guides me, protects me, what a shepherd does. But then, John 10, verse 2. Jumping around a lot, I said that so you have been forewarned. John 10:2. Jesus talking, and the illustration in chapter 10 is shepherd. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. Taking care of sheep. Sheep need a lot of work. Need a lot of work. Not much happens between the ears for sheep other than blind following. So you gotta be a good, that's what Shepherd does. So Shepherd, maybe some of these would resonate with you. I've often thought, if I was back in Bible times, what would I have liked to do? And I thought, I could do then what I do now. So no problem for me. But anyway, Shepherd. Next one, perhaps somebody thought of this one. Carpenter, Isaiah 44. Isaiah 44, verse 13. Most of the time the sermon will be waiting for me to find my verse. Okay, Isaiah 44 and 13. The carpenter measures with a line and makes an outline with a marker, roughs it out with chisels and marks it with compasses, shapes it in hue and form. Okay, let's not even worry about the fact that we're talking about making an idol here. All right, idols are bad, and but there was somebody that did that job of making those things. Shaping, carving, chiseling, maybe like whittling might be today, but that kind of thing. And I heard this from an amateur carpenter. Carpentry has never been me. I don't know if I've ever made anything with wood ever. Even I didn't take shop classes in school. Does anybody ever know what a shop class is? Industrial arts. I didn't do that. So, but somebody told me, here's what you gotta remember as a carpenter. Measure twice and cut once, right? Measure twice. I see some vertical movement of heads. You've heard that and you understand that. If you cut and you haven't measured it right, that piece of wood cannot be used for that function anymore if you've measured it wrong. So measure twice. And they didn't have like meter sticks. There's my physics coming in. Meter sticks or something going on. They would have a line, perhaps a string or rope or something. I want it to be this long. And you back off, and then you make sure you do it the second time, and then you cut. Measure it with line. Okay, carpenter. While you're right there, let's back up a verse for another occupation that you probably didn't think of. Well, at least I doubt it. The blacksmith takes a tool, works with it in the coals. He shapes an idol, there's that again, but with hammers. He forges it with the might of his arm, and it goes on, because I'm just talking about the job here. I have a mental picture of blacksmith in a kind of outdoor shanty away from the house. He's got this super hot forge. He's got the anvil and the hammer, and he's all sweaty and sooty, but he's got these bulging muscles and half a shirt only on and all that kind of thing. And that's a blacksmith. That's a kind of a job there, right? Making things with iron. But there it is right there. All right, making an idol, that's a bad thing. Okay, let's back up one other verse on that one. 1 Samuel 13:19. Maybe some of the things a blacksmith would make. 1 Samuel 13:19. It's in here somewhere because I've read it several times when I was practicing. Okay. There we go. Whoops, not quite there yet. It's 13:19. Okay. Not a blacksmith could be found in the whole land of Israel, because the Philistines had said, otherwise the Hebrews will make swords or spears. So apparently what blacksmiths did, make swords and spears. I can see that. So, blacksmith. And a little bit more specific, let's go to the New Testament, the book of Acts. Acts 19:24. Silver. 19:24. A silversmith named Demetrius, who made silver shrines of Artemis, brought in a lot of business for the craftsmen there. We're in the city of Ephesus at the point where the story is. The great temple to Diana or Artemis was there, and silver shrines. Silver, a very valuable metal, and one of the properties of metals, see I get to talk science because I'm up here, is a malleability. That's a lot of syllables, isn't it, guys? I usually say if it gets to 6 syllables, it's an impressive word. That's a lot of syllables. That means it could be hammered, thin, and shaped and all that kind of stuff. Silver could be overlaying something, or you could make, it would be more costly then, a small amount of silver into something, shaping it very easily because silver is able to be shaped. Making silver shrines. Now it's probably, these are either souvenirs or possibly they're objects of worship, but a silversmith. Next slide. Well, we're in the New Testament. 2 Timothy 4:14. Paul talking at the close of this letter to Timothy. Alexander the metalworker. Let's generalize it from blacksmith and silversmith to working in metal. They had bronze, they had iron, and so on, silver, and someone who's just generalized in working with metals. Another job in Bible times. Turning just a little bit forward in your Bible to Titus 3:13, another occupation. Probably you didn't think of this one. Maybe somebody did. Paul concluding this letter to Titus, do everything you can to help Zenas the lawyer. I'm stopping right there because that's all I'm interested in. There was a fellow named Zenas who was a lawyer. Just like today, people need to understand laws when they're being broken, when someone is being falsely accused, whatever it happens to be, needing to understand the laws. They had laws then. People needed to understand them. If you are into that sort of thing today, you certainly could have been into that in those days as well. Still New Testament, Colossians. I heard Gary say Colossians, and briefly I held my breath, but as it turns out, that was not what I was going to say. So, fine, and it was a good introduction anyway. Colossians 4:14. Possibly somebody thought of this one because of the fellow that wrote some books in the Bible. Paul concluding this letter. Our dear friend Luke the doctor. Now, medicine wasn't the same then as it is now, but someone who understood what herbs and things helped cure or help people, and what procedures needed to be done to make health better for the people that they were attending to. A doctor. That was Luke, who wrote Luke and Acts as well. And I was interested to see in the one song that we sang, the next word. I don't know whether Lynn picked that one on purpose or not. Probably not. But anyway, let's go to Jeremiah. And the occupation is potter. This is the word that came to Jeremiah from Yahweh. Go down to the potter's house and there I will give you my message. So I went down to the potter's house and I saw him working at the wheel. Now working in clay, and of course nobody in Georgia knows what clay is, right? And what color is that? Yeah. So everybody knows what clay is. Working with clay and making things. There would be a stand with a pedestal that could be rotated. And in those days, they had to rotate it by hand. Usually a round pedestal, and you would put a moist lump of clay on the pedestal, start rotating it, and then be shaping it, rotate it some more, and if it was going to be a vessel for water or wine or something like that, then sticking your hand in and making sure that as you spin it, it's rounded and smooth out inside and outside. That was the job of the potter. Molding and shaping, and as it goes on, if you don't like what you see, you smush it, and that's a technical word. You smush it all down and start all over again. But that's what the job of a potter was. Into the New Testament, Acts 10, verse 6. Acts 10, verse 6. And this is the angel speaking to Cornelius about Peter, and Cornelius and Peter were about to be having a meeting, but not quite yet. Send men to Joppa, that's verse 5. Now verse 6. He is staying with Simon the tanner. I venture to say nobody thought of this one. And tanner would be the job of working with leather and at least a middleman, if not a finished product person, in producing products of leather. Animal skins and hides would be used for that process, of course. So an animal is killed and skinned, and you don't just put that on. The hide had to be prepared, and the tanner would typically soak the hide in like a salt solution and maybe some other herbs as well. First of all, to remove the hair and other germs and nasty, icky stuff that might be on the skin, so that there would be a clean, smooth, desirable surface to be put together into a pouch for the sewer, or sandals or something like that, right? Okay. Preparing the hides, whether he goes out and buys them or goes up and finds them himself, is another thing. And as Denise said, here we are, tent maker. Let's back up and drop a few chapters to Acts 18. We're in Corinth now with Paul, verse 1. Verse 2, he's staying with Aquila and his wife Priscilla, one of my favorite people in the Bible. My students understand why, but that's another matter for another time. Then verse 3, Acts 18:3. And because he was a tent maker as they were, he stayed and worked with them. Tents were your mobile homes. And you know what? They still are. Now, maybe not the same kind of tents as they had then, but people go on camping, and I've heard Denise talk about going camping. You have a tent, right? Of course. So you go, and it may not be the same kind of thing as they would have here, but it's a mobile home. And you take some of your stuff there, and you live there for a while, and then you close it all up and go back to your not-so-mobile home. Well, in those days, tents were a little bit more permanent homes for some people, made out of perhaps animal hide or other cloth. And Paul did that, and Aquila and Priscilla did that. Well, all these things I've said so far are jobs for men. All right, ladies, your turn. Occupations for women as well. Let's go to 1 Samuel 8, verse 13. 1 Samuel 8:13. And this is going to need some context. The people of Israel came to Samuel and they wanted to have a king like everybody else does. And Samuel was really unhappy with the idea, but God said, go ahead and you can talk to them about it, but we got to let them do that. So this verse 13 here is out of that. Samuel was trying to discourage them from wanting a king and saying, here's the king will do this, and the king will do this, and make you do that, and so on. And the people still ended up saying we want a king. Well, within the context of Samuel saying that, he, this unknown at this point yet king, will take your daughters to be perfumers and cooks and bakers. In my opinion, it seems to be that women have a much more finely attuned sense of smell. I know Noah will say, do you smell that? I'll go, what? No, and then sometimes I'll say, yeah. But I said, yeah. So the women then, and I think women now, because perfume business is a multi-billion-dollar business today, women would understand the oils and the berries and the secretions of this. And if you grind up that, the fragrances that would come and put that together in a very wonderful way. And they didn't take as many showers and baths then. So they probably splashed on a little bit old-fashioned shower, which just means splash on perfume or cologne. Perfumers. And of course, your daughters will be cooks and bakers. We understand the more occupations. Back to Genesis. Genesis 35:8. 35:8. Now Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, and I'm stopping the verse right there, not intending to read anything about the history or the theology going on. I'm identifying occupations. A personal attendant to make sure that your health needs are met, and if you need something medicinal, that we'll try to do the best we can to find it. And are you comfortable and rested and all these things? A personal attendant, but that was Deborah, Rebekah's nurse. Back up a few more chapters in Genesis. Genesis 29:9. Okay, Jacob was talking to some shepherds. And then here it says, while he was talking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherd. Hey, it was not a gender-exclusive occupation. Shepherd. And for one last thing, let's go to Acts 16. I don't know why this one somehow has always slightly fascinated me, this one. I'm not quite sure what it was, but it's fascinated me. And they were, right chapter first, 16:14, not 17, 16:14, about the Sabbath, and there, Paul's talking. One of them listening, 16:14, was a woman from the city of Thyatira named Lydia, a dealer in purple cloth. I put seller of purple there because that was in my King James memory. Now, cloth in those days, it was bland colors. It was the whites and maybe a beige color. Maybe certain threads were brownish and blackish and so on. But if you wanted to have color like blue or purple, I think I see purple, and other kinds of colors in the audience, if you wanted to have colors like that, you were the rich folk if you wanted to have color, because it took bringing the cloth to someone who knew what the dyes to use, and they would prepare it in a certain way, and then they would sell it to you, and now you have the purple cloth. But that was her occupation, perhaps doing the purple, maybe buying the cloth that way. Anyway, all right. I don't know whether you enjoyed that, but I had fun with that list. So that's your informational part of the sermon. And I cut it way down. But there are other things. Treasurer, soldier, jailer, weaver. Just as sure as we have other occupations represented here, whether you're retired and you had the occupation, or you still have a job, other things mentioned here. Well, my favorite book in the Bible is no mystery to my students, and maybe it's no mystery to you. I come up here often enough, is Ecclesiastes. So where we're going to spend for the rest of the time is what Solomon said about what your hands find to do. I knew there was a lot of stuff about labor and work and toil in this book. I knew there was a lot there. There was a lot more than I thought. So I had to trim that down, so I still have leftover material. Anyway. Okay, everything is, all these numbers are all Ecclesiastes verses. So we'll go back to there, and I'll just chronologically through, or canonically, however the word would be, through the book, go through the verses of Ecclesiastes, and see if these kind of thoughts resonate with, speak to you as they have been speaking to me. Chapter 1, verse 3. What do people gain from all their labors at which they toil under the sun? Ooh, that's kind of a dreary kind of a question. But maybe it's occurred to you, I wonder what value that person's job is. Or what's accomplished with my job. It's a thought that I'm sure occurs to virtually everybody once in a while. Maybe some people it's even twice in a while. But What's the point of it all? Next verse. I don't even have to turn the page in my Bible. I believe Solomon is the author of Ecclesiastes. That's a debatable point, but I believe it's Solomon. 2:10. Looking for something that has meaning in life. I denied myself nothing my eyes desired. 2:10. I refused my heart no pleasure. My heart took delight in all my labor, and this was the reward for all my toil. Oh. My delight in my labor was the reward for my toil. Do you feel good about what you've done at the end of a day, week, month, year?
Yes.
A good time to feel that and think about that is Labor Day. And there is a reward for you right there. Hey, I did my job well. I even enjoyed parts of it. Maybe even a lot of it. And that was my reward. Way back decades ago when I was a young person, longer ago than I want to think about, somebody said, enjoying your job is twice the pay. I had to think about it and go, oh yeah. I do what I do. I like it, and they pay me. That's good. Delighting in your job is reward. And I chose, I'm not exactly sure why, for the key text of the sermon to be this next one, 2:17 to 26. And I chose it because it has a couple of attitudes about work, and quite different attitudes from the first few verses to the last few verses. So here we go. So I hated life because the work that is done under the sun was grievous to me. All of it is meaningless, a chasing after the wind. I hated all the things I had toiled for under the sun because I must leave them to the one who comes after me. And who knows whether that person will be wise or foolish. Yet they will have control over all the fruit of my toil into which I have poured my effort and skill under the sun. This too is meaningless. So my heart began to despair over all my toils and labor under the sun. What's the point? I'm going to die, and it's going to be left. Somebody's going to do with all what I have prepared, or my jobs, or my products, or service. It's all going to be there, and they're not going to appreciate it the way I appreciate it. What's the point of it all? The emotion of despair. That is an emotion that I'm sure some people have about their job. We'll try to minimize that, but I think it's at least Solomon is saying that's a valid feeling that he had. Let me go on for a little bit more. 21. For a person may labor with wisdom, knowledge, and skill, and then they must leave all they own to another who has not toiled for it. This too is meaningless and a great misfortune. What do people get for all the toil and anxious striving with which they labor under the sun? All their days, their work is grief and pain. Even at night, their minds do not rest. This too is meaningless. If we stop right there, it's almost like we might as well turn off the lights, close the door, and go home. It's not any value to anything. But it's a dramatic change to me. Going to verse 24, and I'll do this for the benefit of my students. I have a rainbow Bible here, so they'll know what's coming. And it changes colors for the different themes. There you go. There you go. My students understand. Drop something. Yes, I did. Something right there. I'll put that later. Okay. Anyway, its colors changes at 24. A person can do nothing better than to eat and drink and find satisfaction in their own toil. Find satisfaction. This too I see is from the hand of God. For without him who can eat or find enjoyment? To the person who pleases him, God gives wisdom, knowledge, and happiness. But to the sinner, he gives the task of gathering and storing up wealth to hand it over to the one who pleases God. This too is meaningless, a chasing after the wind. It doesn't say to eat until you are sick. It doesn't say drink alcohol till you're stupid and can't think straight. But you have to eat and drink to live. What is it about your job that I feel good when I do that? Maybe I've benefited somebody or some group of people by what I've said or done here in my job. That feels good. And maybe even I feel that I did my job well and I did my job better than anybody else could have done it. Find satisfaction in your toil. Next slide. Chapter 3, verses 12 and 13. I know that there is nothing better for people than to be happy and do good while they live, that each of them may eat, drink, and find satisfaction in all their toil. This is the gift of God. I'm already hearing an echo. And we're going to have several more echoes here. Eat and drink. Enjoy your life. Be happy. God has given you life. Don't turn your nose up at that. God has given you your job. Yeah, I wish I gave you a different job. God has given you your job. Gift from God. Find the satisfaction in that job. How about 3:22? I'm sure I see all those numbers on this slide there, but it's 3:22. So I saw that there is nothing better for a person than to enjoy their work, because that is their lot, for who can bring them to see what will happen after them? Enjoy your job. We are echoing here. That's the third time I've seen that, and we ain't done yet. When I say ain't, my mother rolls over in her grave. Robert, don't say ain't. But she used to say, ain't's not in the dictionary. But you know what? It's back when she said it. She was right when she said it, but she's wrong now. Anyway, we're not done yet. Chapter 4, verse 8. Here's another different kind of an attitude about work. 4:8. There was a man all alone. He had neither son nor brother. There was no end to his toil, yet his eyes were not content with his wealth. Some people work and work and work to accumulate more wealth. We're not saying that's the right attitude, but that's the attitude of some people. Yeah, I got a lot, but it's not enough. I got to go back to work. Yeah, I have this and this and this, but I got to go back to work. That could be somebody's attitude about their job. I got to keep doing that. I got to keep doing it to make more. Chapter 5, verse 6. First part of the verse is not as relevant, but I'll read the whole thing. Do not let your mouth lead you into sin, and do not protest to the temple messenger. My vow is a mistake. Why should God be angry at what you say and destroy the work of your hands? There's the part. God can, of his decision, destroy the work that you put together. A hurricane, a fire, who knows? A computer glitch that shuts down Delta. Delta. Anyway, God can destroy the work of your hands. Maybe you have a different attitude about things because of that. And then verses 15 through 20 of chapter 5. Everyone comes naked from their mother's womb, and as everyone comes, so they depart. They take nothing from their toil that they can carry in their hands. This too is a grievous evil. As everyone comes, so they depart, and what do they gain, since they toil for the wind? What would be the common saying that summarizes all of that? You can't take it with you. I have seen people in their caskets with a valuable item or two or three, and I suppose that's for memory and sentimental value, but it's not for the value of the person that's laying there, because it does no good for them. And you can't take it with you, so maybe you shouldn't focus so much on what you've done and go back to enjoying your labor and your life again. And I'm not done with those verses. 17. All their days they eat in darkness with great frustration, affliction, and anger. Now the color changes in my color Bible, and we have our echo. This is what I observe to be good, that is appropriate for a person to eat, to drink, and to find satisfaction in their toilsome labor under the sun during the few days of life God has given them, for this is their lot. Moreover, when God gives someone wealth and possessions and the ability to enjoy them, to accept their lot and to be happy in their toil, it is a gift of God. They seldom reflect on the days of their life because God keeps them occupied with gladness of heart. If you're happy all the time, you're not worried about, this may not be the perfect job that I had visioned when I was high school, but it's okay. I'm enjoying my life. I'm happy about this, and it doesn't matter because I'm happy with my gift of God life. Enjoy life. And there's that eat and drink and find satisfaction again. I think that's important. When the teacher emphasizes something by repetition, it must be important. Yeah. Koheleth, and one way of translating Koheleth, which is the name of the Hebrew for the writer here in verse 1 of chapter 1. It could be teacher. That's one possible translation of that word. Anyway, there it is. Next slide. Moving on, chapter 8, verse 15. So I commend the enjoyment of life. There it is again. Because there's nothing better for a person under the sun than to eat and drink and be glad. There's no percentage or value in being mopey, droopy, as some of the expressions and emotions that he was saying earlier. Then joy will accompany them in their toil. You're happy, it will spill over into your job, and your job will go better. You'll feel better about it. You'll probably do better with it because you're enjoying it and you're just happy. All days of life God has given you under the sun. And 9, 9, and 10. 9, 9. Enjoy life with your wife, and I think for the time being, I'm going to paraphrase it, wife or husband or family or whatever people around you. Enjoy life, whom you love, with wife, whatever, whom you love, all the days of this. And I think we have some tongue-in-cheek sarcasm going on with our writer right here. I don't think he really means enjoying life and it's meaningless, because those two don't even go together. But I think it's sarcasm with the meaningless life that God has given you to be this evil. No, it's not. It's good. For this is your lot in life and your toils and labor in the sun. Now, verse 10 is the title of the sermon. Whatever your hand finds to do, do with all your might. For the realm of the dead where you're going, there is neither working nor planning nor knowledge nor wisdom. Do your best. That's kind of what Gary's verse from Colossians said. Work hard and show the world that Christians are hard workers, can be counted on, do a good job. Work, do your best. At the end of the day, think about it. I think I did my best. I am my own worst critic, and there are a lot of times I messed that one up. I forgot to say this in class, and I forgot to turn on the video and stuff like that. And so I'm a critic of that because I want to do my best, and sometimes I see that I didn't do it. But try your best, do your best. That's what God wants. And then the last verse of the book, 12:14. And I'll just read the first line. For God will bring every deed into judgment. I don't know what judgment day is going to consist of. If it's you're in, okay, you're out, okay, you're in, okay, I don't know. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's a little bit more, there's this good, this bad. All right, well, you're in. Will God say, you worked hard at your job. You did it well. So, well done. the joys of your Lord. Will God say that? Or will he say, I don't know, you're complaining a lot. I don't know. So what did Solomon here tell us? It's a little bit natural to kind of question some things. But just remember, your life and your job is a gift from God. It is a gift from God to enjoy your life. And you have to eat. So you might as well have something you enjoy eating. You have to drink. Okay, my granddaughter drinks just water all the time. And that's fine. Supposedly that's the best thing we should all be drinking is water all the time. Okay, that's fine. But you have to drink water. If you don't drink water or something, so eat, drink, and find satisfaction in your toil. Find the positives to your job. What am I doing to help others? Work hard, God will judge. So if you had a bad day at work, well, that's all right. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. Apparently Solomon had his ups and downs as he was writing this material right here. Possibly your work brings joy to someone or brings some product or service to a larger scope of humanity. Find God. Serve God as you're serving your employer. And find satisfaction and pleasure in that. Enjoy your labor. You're commanded to. And most of all, have a good Labor Day and enjoy Labor Day. So, I just urge you to find those positives in your job. Things you enjoy, the things you do well, things you know that are making a difference for others. And enjoy your job, enjoy Labor Day, and enjoy your life. These are gifts from God. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you next week.